Welcome, this is Carrie Schell from On Point Quilter. Last week, I presented a quiz where I asked you to analyze an antique quilt called the Garden Maze. In this tutorial, I'll show how I drafted the blocks, how I figured out the sizing of the blocks, and then how I created the final quilt using Electric Quilt 8. In Electric Quilt, select New Project, and I'm going to label this Garden Maze Antique Quilt, and select OK. Select Import and Edit Fabric Images, and select Import Image. I put a copy of the image of the antique quilt under my EQ8 images. Select the downloaded photo and select Open. Then I will select Add to Project Sketchbook, select Crop, and adjust the crop window. Make sure to include one of the main blocks plus the surrounding sashing, and select Apply Crop. Select Scale Fabric, and we're going to just make this a little bit larger, so I will type in 8 and select Apply, select Fit to Work Table, select Crop, and this time you will be able to see a little bit better to line up the edges of the sashing. And then select Apply Crop, Add to Project Sketchbook. Now I want to try to figure out the proportions between the block and the sashing. So the easiest way I found to do that is to go to the Quilt work table, do a New Quilt, and select the style Custom Set, and then go to the Design tab, select Photo Tools, Set Photo, drag the cropped portion of the quilt on the layout. Now let's zoom in, select the tape measure, and measure the star, which is the block. Make note of the size. For me, it's 2.1 inches. Next, I will decide what size I would like to use for piecing the block. I decided on a finished size of 6 inches. Using a calculator, I will divide the desired size with the measured size to come up with the ratio. With the Adjust tool, I will then select the photo and make note of the actual width. And then I will make sure that Preserve Aspect Ratio is on, and with the calculator, I will multiply the width times that previously calculated ratio. And it is very close to 20 inches, so I'm going to change the width to 20. Select the tape measure and now remeasure the block and confirm that it is close to 6 inches. Then, with the tape measure, calculate the width of the sashing blocks. What I found was there was a little bit of variation, but in general they were around 7 inches. In EQ, I will then size the blocks at 6 inches and the sashing at 7 inches. With the tape measure, I also suggest measuring the size of the edge strips for the sashing. They are about 1¼ inches. Select the block work table and now select a new block pieced Easy Draw. Let's start with the star block. Set the block width and height to 6 by 6, and I'm going to set the snaps to 4 by 4 because the block is based on a 4 patch. With snapping options, just snap to grid. Draw horizontal and vertical lines at 1½ and 4½. With the line tool, add diagonal lines to create the flying geese units. Select the Color tab and color the block, and add to Project Sketchbook. Next, we'll draft the sashing block. Select New Block Pieced Easy Draw Block, and change the block width and height to 7 by 7. Since I know the left and right edges need to be 1¼ inches, I need to set my snaps to the nearest 1/4 inch. So I will multiply the 7 times 4, which means my snaps horizontal and vertical will be 28. Draw vertical lines at 1¼ and 5 3/4. Select the Color tab and color the sashing block, and select Add to Project Sketchbook. Select the quilt work table and select a new quilt horizontal. There's no need to save the previous quilt, so I'm going to say no to that. On the Layout tab, change the number of blocks to 4 by 4 and change the finished size of the block to 6 by 6. And then I'm going to, under Sashing, include a sashed border. Also check Keep Width and Height Equal and change the sashing to 7 inches. On the Border tab, let's go ahead and delete the border for now. Select the Design tab and under Block Tools, Set Block, locate the star block and with the Control Command key, select one of the smaller square spaces on the quilt work table. Now select the sashing block and with the Control or Command key, select the sashing surrounding the center square. With the Control or Command key, select Rotate and click on one of the vertical sashing blocks to change the orientation. Now we need to draw the cornerstones. Select the block work table. Select the Draw tool and we're going to keep the block at 7 by 7. We're going to want to match the lines on the cross block with the sashing block. So select Convert to Guides and then draw horizontal lines at 1 1/4 and 5 3/4. Then select Convert to Guides. Draw diagonal lines matching up the ends of the horizontal and vertical guidelines. Then go to Color, back to Draw, and now with the Pick tool, I'm going to delete 2 of those short diagonal lines in the center, which is going to make this easier to piece. Go to the Color tab and color the block and add to Project Sketchbook. Go back to the quilt work table and under Set Block, select the cross block and with the Control or Command key, select the top left square. Next, let's work on the corner blocks. Select the block work table, and for this block, we want to combine a 6 and a 7-inch block. So select the Draw tool, and using the line, let's draw a diagonal line at 6 inches. With the Pick tool, select and delete all of the lines to the upper left of the new diagonal line. Go ahead and clear the guidelines. To draw the star block, we're going to use the same dimensions we did when drawing the star block at 6 inches. Draw horizontal and vertical lines at 1 1/2 and 4 1/2 inches. Draw the diagonal lines for the flying geese units. Select the Color tab and color the block, and select Add to Project Sketchbook. Select the quilt work table and select the corner block and click on the 4 corners. Select Rotate and adjust the orientation. Notice that everything still matches up with the existing blocks. Select the Borders tab, select Add, and change the border type to Points Out. Under the border size, put in a preliminary number. I chose to use 6. Since the left side seems to be the most accurate of the outside borders, change the horizontal and vertical blocks in borders to 6. Select the Design tab and color one of the on-point triangles. Select Print and Export and select one of the on-point triangles and note the width. For these triangles to be 90 degrees, we want the height to be half of the width. With the calculator, divide the width of 9.82 by 2, which means our height needs to be 4.9. Select the Border tab and select the Points Out border and change the size to 4.9. The numbers will round based on your work table settings, so mine rounded to 4.875. Select the Design tab and color the border. Then go to the Border tab and let's add a mitered border for the binding, and I like to use 0.375 for that. Select the Design tab and color the binding. Hide Show Quilt patch lines and add to Project Sketchbook. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you learned something new as I shared how I drafted both the blocks and the quilt layout for this antique quilt.